Hello and welcome to another episode of Run Till You're Done. This week's guest is someone who has gave me the privilege to spend an entire weekend crewing for him on the West Highland Way race this year. As well as chatting about that, we will dive into how he got started with running and the events that led him up to participating in the West Highland Way race this year and what other things will lead on from that. Welcome to the podcast, Stevie McKenna.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
We'll start off with the question that we ask everybody is, how did you first get into running?
Probably not the way that everybody else seems to have got into running via COVID. I actually started back in end of 2012, 2013. I was never into running when I was younger. That was my brother's thing. He done it at school. He went on to represent Scottish schools at kind of cross country and middle distance. That was his thing. I just let him get on with it. And I kind of fell into love of snow sports. And then back in maybe late 2000s, I blew my ACL. Didn't realise it at the time. Just continued snowboarding because I was able to snowboard fine with it. But eventually, over the years, my knee started to give way when I was twisting on it. And it turns out that I had no ACL left, so I had to get reconstruction on it. And as part of that, the physiotherapy afterwards, the goal was ultimately to get back snowboarding. So I went through a kind of 11 week physio program where it was just all really basic movements. And then after that point, they said, what we want you to do now is we want you to start putting some motion into it, putting some running into it, but we don't want you doing nothing kind of like no cutting movements, no changing direction, just forwards and back, nice and easy. And it was weekly appointments I was getting at the hospital. And what they said to me was, look, go off and by next week, we want you to come back here and see if you can get it up to a mile. So me, I went off. And bearing in mind, I'd been doing gym work, I'd been doing like work on the bike and things like that just to keep my cardio going. But me, I went off, and on the first day I was like, right, okay, they said I've got to run a mile by next week. So I went out that night and I ran a mile. And then the following day I thought, well, if I'd done 1 mile last night and I got no reaction from it, can I do 2 miles the following night? And by the time I went back to physio the next week, I'd done 10k. So at that point I needed some sort of goal to keep me going. And God, this would have been probably this late summer, maybe early autumn of 2012. And I thought, well, what can I do? I'd never ran like 10Ks or anything like that, but I'd just done a 10K as part of that physio. So I thought, well, let's give myself a goal. Let's look at the Edinburgh Marathon. And I entered myself into the 2013 Edinburgh Marathon. And just focused on that. Now, at that point, I had 0 friends who I would consider runners. I knew a couple of people that had done marathons before, and they'd said to me, 4 hours, that's the mecca, that's what you want to aim for. If you can do 4 hours, that's amazing. But ultimately for me, the goal was just to get back on the snowboard. It wasn't to start running or anything like that. And then May, it would have been May, rolled round in 2013, turned up in Edinburgh, went out, and I finished in, was it 3 hours 49:56? So for me, that was like box ticked, never have to do another marathon again. Running is done. After that, just from a kind of fitness point of view, I would go off and do the occasional 10k here or a half marathon, like the Glasgow half, the Great Scottish Run. That's something that I would always kind of do every year. But let's be honest, it was a day out with the boys. You would go in, you would either do the 10k first thing in the morning, or you would go and do the half marathon, and then you would go to the pub, and then the day would just get away from you, and it was a day out. But yeah, there was no kind of concept of me considering myself as being a runner or anything. It was just something I'd done to keep fit at that point.
So was Edinburgh Marathon your first running event?
Yeah. So I went through. I've got all my medals on the wall over here, and I went through thinking there might have been one. I lived in Edinburgh, mid 2000s. I lived through there, and I think there was potentially one that I'd done round the Meadows, but I don't have a medal for it. So 2013, I'm going to put that down as my first one. And then I've also got a Great Scottish Run one for 2013. So obviously, I'd thought at that point, well, I'll start doing that. And I think with the Great Scottish Run, it was just that unique selling point of running over the Kingston Bridge. I was like, that would be cool to do that. And yeah, like I say, since then it was just kind of like little runs here and there to keep fit.
Well, Edinburgh was my first as well, but I was 4 years before you.
Right.
So I hated it. It was the wind. It was hot that day. I think it was the first year that they ran out of water. But
right,
that's a hot topic.
Yeah, I was quite fortunate. I think it was maybe only the last hour that the sun, that the kind of the hard burnt off and it got hot. But we didn't really get any wind as such. But I came back from it and I was like, well, that's that box ticked. I'm not rushing back to do that at all.
Yeah. Well, I say I hated it. I crossed the finish line and said I'm never running again.
And aside from the running, you built up to Edinburgh Marathon. Did you get back on the snowboarding pretty quickly?
Oh yeah, no. So I mean, like I say, the marathon was just a complete. That was a bonus. That was a kind of, oh, I've got this fitness, so I've got that goal to work to. But no, I was back snowboarding by the December of that year. So they reckoned to have an ACL reconstruction, you reckon there were about 9 months, maybe 10 months to get back to that level of fitness to be able to do that. And I was back doing it within 7.5, 8 months.
And did you feel the running then complemented your snowboarding skills, like with core and fitness and things like that?
It definitely helped fitness wise. I mean, it definitely, I lost a bit of weight when I was doing that, and that, any sort of mass that you can take off your knees when you're doing any sort of snow sports was definitely beneficial.
A lot of people say that running is bad for your knees, but I think what you're saying is what the scientific evidence, it's not proof, evidence says that it tends to be people that don't run that say that because that's their excuse not to run. But running actually builds up your cartilage and regenerates it because you're constantly wearing it down to build it back up again, and that's how your body reacts to it. So yeah. I would say that you getting back to it is evidence towards that. Yeah,
no, I definitely see that my knees are, if you compare them to even 20 years ago, they're in much better condition than they were then.
So obviously you ran the Edinburgh Marathon.
Yeah.
And there's a big gap between then and sitting with us today now. Where did that lead to then? You ticked that box, you were never doing it.
So I ticked that box. So ticked the marathon box. I'd went off and done 10Ks and 21Ks. I did go back to Edinburgh. So I did go back in 2017. I also went to Stirling in 2017 as well. That was the kind of inaugural year that they brought the Stirling Marathon in. So I originally signed up for the Stirling Marathon thinking, well, it's been 4 years since I've ran one. Let's go and do that. Ran the Stirling Marathon, and then the lead up to that, one of my friends had a place for Edinburgh, and he was injured. He was going to pull out of it, and they asked me if I knew anybody that would take that place from him. So I asked about. Nobody was keen for it, but then the seed was planted in my head. It's like, could I run Edinburgh? Could I run Stirling one weekend, and then just have a complete recovery week, and then go and run Edinburgh the next weekend? Now, looking back on it, the signs were there. The signs were there of what I was going to go on and do in later years. But yeah, I took Eddie's place off him, turned up at Edinburgh, ran it again, had a horrific run due to sweating and nipple tape coming off and all the rest of it. So my plans went out the window. But yeah, but it was good to do that and just doing them back to back and think, no, I can actually do things that are hard here. And then off the back of that, so that was 2017. So that would have been, the end of May. And then I caught wind of the Run the Blades 50K, which happens, like 5 miles from my mum and dad's house, like in my old bedroom, you can actually see all the turbines from Whiteley's wind farm. And I just had that little seed in the back of my head of, all I need to do is run like 4 point something miles more, and then suddenly I can call myself an ultramarathon. I've done ultramarathons, and at that point, that's it. I don't need to run again. I've done every sort of distance you can do. So yeah, that July I found myself up in Whiteley's doing the 50k, and that was ultimately the gateway that led to everything else.
But your Edinburgh Stirling double, did your times improve compared to when you did Edinburgh before?
No. So I was still under. I can't remember my exact time. I was a couple of minutes under 4 hours for Stirling, which was a horrible event. Like they started you at Blair Drummond, so you went through like Doon and Dunblane and that, came back into Stirling, but then when you got to Stirling, you were only about 17 miles into the course, so they made you do multiple laps of the city centre. So somebody like me that was aiming for sub 4 hours coming into 17 miles, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I was like maybe 2.5 hours or 2:45 or something like that. Meanwhile, I'm then getting caught up with the guys that are going for sub 3 that are on their last lap. So it was horrible. You're running along at your pace and suddenly everybody's flying past you. But then as you progressed around your laps, you suddenly became the fast person as everybody else was feeding in. So yeah, that was just shy of 4 hours for that one. And then Edinburgh, I think, was like 4:15, 4:20 because I was stopping at medical tents to try and find Vaseline from people and learning lessons for future events.
And then you got involved with Run the Blades, as you say. You done your first ultra, Run the Blades 50k. That then led on to other things to do with Breaking Strain, who run that, didn't they?
Yeah. So at that point, my experience of running was road running events, and you'll know yourself. You turn up at some of these events and nobody will say hello to you. Nobody, especially I find as you get higher up in these events or you get faster in these events, it's everybody's in their own zone, everybody's in their own world, and God forbid you cut in front of somebody or get in their way or take your time round a corner. Whereas I went along to Breaking Strains and instantly you were just made to feel you were part of the entire event. And I came away from that event with friends that I've still got today. And it was just people that I was yo-yoing with, or we ended up teaming up and we were both run walking certain parts of it. But it just, again, it was just a sign of things to come in the ultra community, that inclusiveness, that everybody's in it together. So yeah, after doing that, again, for me, that box was ticked. I had done all the distances, but I then realised that they offer like a 10k one on the Friday night of the event. They offer a 21k version on the Sunday of the event, and then they also later on in the year do a 10k night one where it's the exact same 10k route, but everybody's got head torches on. So just over the next few years, I then got involved at like for the main Run the Blades weekend, I would pick one of the events and go and do it. And then whatever event I wasn't doing, I would go along and marshal at the other ones just so I could be part of it.
And you said that was, you could see it from your bedroom window at your parents' house. Is that where you went to school?
Yes, so I went to school in East Kilbride, yeah.
And was there anybody involved with that races that you used to go to school with that people would turn around and go, what?
Not now, but not back then. But whereas now there actually is. So I know, like we'll come on to it later, but I know that Run the Blades is happening this weekend, and there's actually a couple of guys that I went to school with that are turning up to do their first 50k, and they're absolutely buzzing about it. But I'm excited to see them as well, because some of them I've not seen for years, and yeah, it'll just be nice to catch up with them. And I think not so much when I was at school. When I was at school, I used to play rugby, so I was kind of in a decent shape. But let's just say during my 20s and 30s, I wasn't in such a decent shape And it's, yeah, I think if people that knew me from 20 years ago realised what I was doing now, they wouldn't recognise me.
And
it's
I
those
think
guys.
that I'm going to interrupt you there, Nikki.
Yeah.
I think that leads on to Nikki wanted you on the show because she was involved in the race that we're going to talk about. But the thing that I wanted to talk about was your Instagram name,
Yes.
which is?
It is 100 kgs to 100 km.
And tell us a story about that.
So, God, this 18 months ago, maybe. Yes, it's the beginning of last year. Up until that point, I was a solo runner, I would say. You know, I would turn up at these events. Like Run the Blades would be different because I would turn up and I would volunteer there and I would get to know faces. But any other event I would go to, I would just turn up, run the event, get my medal, go back to the car, go home. That was it. I knew a few faces from events, but I wouldn't turn up at events and feel like I was part of a group or anything like that. So, 18 months ago, I decided, no, I'm going to try and be a bit more social here when it comes to running. So rather than bore my friends and family, I set up a separate Instagram account, and I thought I'm just going to document what I do, more for myself, just to keep myself honest and accountable. And at the time, I was 100+ kilograms, and I thought, right, what goal can I do now? I had already ran Glasgow to Edinburgh Ultra, so that was about 57, 58 miles. And I thought the next logical step from there is a 100k race. So 100 kilograms, 100k, put it together, and that was my Instagram account.
And I remember you setting that account up because you first came onto my radar when you done the Run the Blades treble, where you do all 3 events on the same weekend with Mel Barrett. And I knew Mel, and Mel says, oh, you need to friend Stevie, he's such a great guy. And that's how we made the connection through your old account. And I think that was just like the natural progression. As you say, you don't want to bore your friends and family with running chat. And then it just ended up, it was perfect that you'd made the account because it was such a great way to document your journey.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I say, first and foremost, it was for me. It was for me to keep myself honest. So whatever event I was training for, every day I would go out, and the whole thinking behind it was just go out, do your run, take some photos. You know, Monday to Friday, I'm a software developer, but I do a lot of freelance photography from various things, for mainly snow sports, and that's why it was important for me to be able to get back on my snowboard and be able to do some work over the winter. But you know, I'll also do events and music festivals and things like that. But for me, with my account, I wanted to just go out, have a run, take some photos. You know, I'm a trail runner. I'm going to stop and take photos as I go. But then just be honest about how that run was. You know, don't sugarcoat it. If it wasn't perfect, it wasn't perfect. You know, the likes of this morning, I went out for a run with the dog. I was too busy looking. I went down a section of the Clyde Walkway that's kind of disused. I know better. I shouldn't go down there during the summer because it all gets overgrown. So I'm too busy looking for giant hogweed that I don't want to get burnt on. And I ran straight through a bunch of nettles without even realising. So, you know, there's no point in sugarcoating that. I'm just going to update my post for today and say, yep, I'm an idiot. I ran through that. Yeah, I just wanted to almost have something for myself to see the progress that I was making as time went on. And then over time, more people got interested in it. More people started following me. And then the thing that really started blowing my mind was you would get just random messages from people saying, you know, I'm in the same situation as you. You know, I've let things go over the years. I'm now 100 and something kilos. How do I get from where I am just now to what you're doing? And anybody that takes the time to send me a message, I will sit down and take time to send a message back to them. But yeah, like I said, that still blows my mind that people can be inspired by that and want to go off and do something themselves.
So you had 100-kilometre event in mind. Did you know which one you wanted to do?
I didn't at the time, and then Lee, the race director at Breaking Strain, he actually pinged me a message and he was like, well, funnily enough, we're going to be organising the inaugural Run the Borders event last August, which was 109k. So straight away I was like, well, that's it. It's perfect. It's meant to be. And I signed up for that last year. But unfortunately, I then developed plantar fasciitis in one of my feet. And I finished my kind of B race last year in June. And I thought, right, give myself a couple of weeks, ease back into it. And it was just obvious it wasn't going to happen. You know, I still had another 6-7 weeks of training that I would have to do to then get to that A race. And I went out one day to do a 50k into Glasgow and back out. And by the time I got back, like, I could have squeezed another 20k out of it maybe, but there was no way I was squeezing another 50k out without properly hurting myself. So I had to be sensible, and I had to pull out of it. And you know, rather than just completely miss the event, I pulled out of it and said, right, okay, I've got that weekend booked off anyway. What do you need me to do? And I went down and volunteered at it. So I still felt like it was part of the event, but obviously my goal then went out the window, and it took a little bit longer to get to the 100k.
And out of all the races you've done, you just said, you mentioned Glasgow, Edinburgh, Run the Blades. Have you got a favourite?
It has to be the one I've just finished. It has to be, and I'm not just saying that because it's the one that
bias.
it's the most recent one. Yeah, no, it's the West Highland Way without a doubt. I've already talked about the community within ultras and trail running, but all the way through my training for the West Highland Way, I heard everybody talk about the West Highland Way family, whether that was Ian Beattie or whether it was Keith Hughes or Adrian or people like that. Everybody talked about this family, and I didn't really get it. I didn't fully get it until the weekend of the race. It's just that, yeah, it's not just the other racers that you're in it with. You're in it with all the other support crews. Point in case, and Nicky won't mind me saying this, when I got to Rondennan, Nicky was sleeping in the car, and so was Karen. Quite right too. They had been up since God knows when on the Friday. So we had agreed that Nicky was going to come up to the entrance of whatever car park, whatever checkpoint, meet me there, and then take me to the car. So I got there. Nicky wasn't there. And I pulled my phone. I wasn't panicking. I knew they would be there, but I pulled my phone out, went to message them, and within the space of 60 seconds, I had 3 other crews come up to me and say, is your support crew here? What's happened? What do you need? We've got X, Y, and Z in the car. Come with us. And that was the moment where I fully got it. I fully understood it. It's everybody is there to make everybody get to that finish line in Fort William.
Right. If it's any consolation to Nicky, on my first West Highland Way, I got into Glencoe and my crew were in the cafe having lunch. So it happens.
It's just one of those things, isn't it? But before we do go on and chat about that weekend, I just want to touch on as well, throughout your Instagram account as well, you do quite a few park runs, don't you? Do you have a favourite?
So I'm going to say I do quite a few. I think I've probably only done about 4 in my entire life. But you're probably thinking, oh, he's down in Strathclyde Park running again, so he's doing a park run. Sometimes, like, Strathclyde Park's only, 3 and a bit miles from here if I jump on the trails. So I'm down there. It's a kind of default for me. If I want a nice, easy run, I head down there. In terms of attending them, I don't get to as many as I would like to get to, mainly because, just for family reasons, if I'm doing back-to-back long runs, Friday's a guaranteed day that my wife doesn't work, so I can get up at whatever time in the morning, get out and get however many miles I need to do. And then if I'm doing a back-to-back, then it's normally Saturday morning that I'm out. And yeah, it's something that I would like to get down and do. But in terms of, I think I've done a couple at Strathclyde Park, done one up at Lanark Moor, and I've randomly done one in Worcester down in England. But yeah, I'd like to do some more. I would like to do some more.
What was Worcester like? Was that hilly?
No, it's flat. So it's on the racecourse. It's on the racecourse, round by the River Severn. I was actually down for a mate's wedding, and we went down on the Friday. Everybody was in the pub on the Friday night, and Ellie, the bride, she normally goes along on the Saturday to do parkrun. So at 11:30 that night, she announces to everybody, "Right, I'm doing parkrun in the morning. Who's coming?" And everybody was like, "Oh, I'm coming, I'm coming, I'm coming." I genuinely had my shoes with me because I was going to go out for a run on the Saturday morning. So yeah, I dragged myself out of bed the following morning, went down to the park run, and it was me and Ellie. That was it. Nobody else from the wedding party turned up. So, but yeah, wasn't my fastest 5K. Let's put it that way.
All right, we'll get back on topic. The West Highland Way. You've already mentioned about the West Highland Way family.
Yep.
Go back to, would be December last year. You've just been drawn out of the ballot, and how did it start? I guess you must have had the idea you wanted to do it because that's why you entered.
So we'd probably go back to the weekend of the West Highland Way in 2024. So I obviously I knew about the West Highland Way, but for me it was always like, that's like the pinnacle, or it's up there as one of the big ones. I had kind of been dabbling the year before in trail runs with a bit more elevation in it. Obviously, Glasgow Edinburgh's flat as a pancake. But after doing that, I thought, well, what can I do that's got a bit more elevation? So I done the Tweed Valley, which had about 5,000 foot elevation in it, and then went and ticked off Glen Ogle. And then last year I done the GB Ultra Scotland 50. So that had about 10,000 foot elevation. So at that point I was like, you know what? I'm not the fastest, but I can cope with hills. And then completely, it was just a complete coincidence. I had decided myself I was going to do one of these 4-4-48 challenges. And I thought the best weekend to do that, Midsummer's weekend. That way I only have to deal with one run in the dark. And I didn't realise that was the weekend that the West Highland Way race happened. But what that meant for me was I was going out, I was starting at 8 o'clock on the Friday night and then back out at midnight. But then when I came back in from that run at midnight, I was like, oh, the race is starting. So I'm seeing a lot of chat on social media about it. Went off to my bed, got up for the run at 4 o'clock in the morning. And at that point, I knew a few folk that were doing it. Kevin Craig, Gary Dempsey, Kaylee Webster, people that I looked up to in the way of, these are everyday runners that have stepped up and really started pushing themselves. And I mean, you look at what they're doing now. It's nuts for Gary going off and doing the Cape Wrath Ultra, and you look at the year Kaylee's had up until she got injured. But it just gave me a little bit of interest because I knew the people that were queuing with them as well. So when I got up for my 4 o'clock run, I would go out and do that, come back in at 4:45, and I could start looking at the tracker and be like, all right, okay, they're here. So as that weekend went on, obviously I'm getting my sleeps in between all my runs, and then I'm getting to like a 4 o'clock run on the Sunday morning, and I'm looking at the tracker and I'm like, these guys are still out there. I'm like, that is amazing. Like, that's absolutely phenomenal. And then I'm out doing my run at 8 o'clock thinking, could I do that? And it was just that seed of, could I take that step up? And it was a massive step to go from like 58 miles to go up to 95 miles. That's not even just like a comfortable step. You're almost a double marathon in there. But I think that was probably what planted the seed. I got to September time when the entries were coming out for the Devil and for the Fling, and I spoke to my wife at the time and I was like, look, I'm going to, these ones I can definitely get into, I'm going to put my name down for both of them, and then that way at least it's a bit of experience. I can get to run on the West Highland Way and see what it's like. And then I said, I'm going to throw my name into the ballot. I've put my name into the London Marathon ballot for the last 10 years, never even get a sniff. So I was like, it'll be the same as London. I'll put my name in, that'll be fine. And then of course I listened to you guys speaking with Keith about the ballot process, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, there's maybe a chance here that I might get into this. So yeah, I think at that point I knew my name was in. our mutual friend Kevin Craig, he'd also said he was putting his name in, but we'd also at that point decided, well, if I don't get in and Kev gets in, then Kev's going to, then I'll crew for Kev, and vice versa. And Nicky was the same. Nicky was like, I'm there to help out however you need to. And then the emails arrived in December, and it suddenly became very, very real at that point.
We're going, before we know what the outcome is of the ballot, but before we go into that, your 4x4x48.
Yeah.
The West Island Way, the time limit is 34 hours, I think, or 35 hours.
35 hours.
But you were still running afterwards. Did you ever feel, I want to stop now?
Not really, because again, my goal for that was to get those 12 runs done. And that, like I say, I was getting sleep in between it, and I was getting to relax in between it. But yeah, that goal, it was just the same as any ultra. It was just like, just tick them off as you go. Just get run 1, run 2, run 3, and so on and so on. But it was a good kind of insight of how I coped when I was tired. And I think that's ultimately why I was doing it, because earlier on in that month when I was doing Scotland 50, you've got the Scotland 100 going at the same time. And I got to the one thing I quickly learned on that race, everybody had the same number. So there was no distinction between who was doing the 50 and who was doing the 100 that year. They've changed that now, but I quickly realised you couldn't judge a book by its cover. So you're chatting to people, and the most unassuming people would be there to do the 100, and it would be like their 10th 100 they were doing or something like that. But it was great to run along with these people and almost like mine them for information of how do I go from where I am just now doing a 50 this year to doing 100 next year. How do I cope with running through the night? How do I cope with running when I'm tired? And the obvious answer was you just get up and you do it. You go out at night and you run during the night when you're tired. You run during the winter with your head torch on when it's dark for 5 months of the year anyway, if you're running in the evenings or you're running in the mornings. So yeah, that was good to do that, and then also go on and then do the 4-4-48 and realise, no, I can drag myself out of bed. I can get up and just get that first mile done when I'm tired, and then before you know it, you just ease into it again.
Well, 4x48. A lot of people do that as training for backyard ultras, and what you just said there is you just get on with it, just planting the seed.
Oh, don't worry. The seed's already there, to the point that I have said I'm going to go and volunteer at B. Craig's next year, because that means that I can't actually run it. See, I'm being smart here. I'm being smart.
I'm sure Kaylee will sort that one out.
Yeah.
So your name gets drawn out of the hat, and you'd asked me if I could crew for you, but even before, because you were getting really prepared actually, which is great, because I don't think a lot of people realise when they do enter the ballot, one, that they will actually get drawn, and two, you do have to have 2 mandatory crews. So already you were fairly organised with that. What happened as soon as the name got drawn? It must have lit some sort of fire in you to get training.
It did, and it came at the perfect time. It was the biggest proverbial boot up the backside I've had in a long time, for various reasons. First and foremost, at that point, my mum was in hospital, and not in a good way. Now she's absolutely fine now. You wouldn't even know that she was in hospital, but I think, God, the day before the draw was made, like myself and my brother were sitting in a room in the hospital having a very frank conversation with the consultant about a DNR getting put in place for my mum. So I was all over the place. And also because I had plantar fasciitis, I wasn't doing as many miles as I had been doing at the start of the year. So my weight was keeping back up. And I just generally just wasn't happy with where I was. So my name came out the hat, and straight away, like you say, it was just that fire got lit instantly, because I knew if I was to turn up at the start line in 6 months' time, weighing 102 kilograms, I got away with that when I was running a 50 miler. I got away, and it was getting away with it. There was no danger I was getting away with that over 95 miles. So it was just a case of what I actually done. And again, I say it was a boot up the backside at the perfect time because it was right at the start of December. And normally, rightly or wrongly, I have a thing in this house where we get to December and we just say, I won't swear, but we just say, it's Christmas, who cares? You know, eat what you want, drink what you want, enjoy yourself, be merry. But for me, it was the complete opposite. It was no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself a wee mini 4-week block through December and just shock myself back into doing 50 miles a week and just step back up to doing that. Now, that's the sort of distance I was doing for my training at the start of the year. So I knew I was capable of it, but I just wanted to get my body shocked back into, right, let's just do this. And at the same token, get my diet back under control. And what that meant was I actually came out of December for the first time in God knows how long, weighing less than what I went into it. And normally it's the other way about, where I come into January and I'm like, oh, right, okay, I put a stone on over Christmas. So I had that wee mini 4-week training block. And then I sat down at the end of December and I was like, right, 24 weeks from there to race day. And I just sat down and planned out what I wanted to do over that time period.
And you lost weight. Was that through running or diet, or was diet because you were running?
It was both. It was both. So obviously with just the amount of miles I was doing, I'm burning through calories doing that anyway. But there was that switch got flicked where it was food wasn't there for pleasure. It wasn't there for I'm the world's worst. Like I say, I'm a software developer. I work remotely. If I get stressed throughout the workday, the fridge is just downstairs. The kids' snacks are just downstairs. It's so easy to go down and just grab something. But what I was taking the approach of, well, if I'm getting up, I do most of my training in the mornings if I can. So if I'm getting up and running for, 8 miles in the morning, do I really want to go and grab that Mars bar just because I'm having a bad day? Do I really want to start undoing that? And then that kind of led into, I'd have a good week's training. I would jump on the scales and I would have lost a couple of pounds. And I'm like, okay, well, that's vindicated all that hard work. So then the following week, do the same again. And it was just that slow, seeing the weight come off. But then the flip side of that was my runs, my easy runs were getting faster. Instead of being I'm trying to think, instead of being like 9.5 minute miles when I was starting off, that's suddenly dropping down to like 9:15 one week, and then it's 9 minutes the next week. And I was really noticing a big difference, and that was because the weight was coming off at the same time.
And did you follow a certain diet plan, Stevie? Where did you get your dietary advice?
So years ago, I had an online PT, and it was a friend of a friend who was who has a PT, but it was during COVID. He was doing like online plans, so I just basically took what he gave me back then and adapted it. And it, I wasn't counting calories as such. I wasn't sitting down and saying, okay, well, I need to make sure I'm only taking in 2,000 or 18,000 or 1,800 calories. I was just thinking, okay, well, this is what I used to do when I was training, so I just kind of stuck with that. Obviously, if I had a big run the next day, I would make sure I was getting extra carbs in maybe the night before. But it was just cutting out the junk, basically. And it might sound really boring, but my kind of go-to would be like chicken and rice and veg, or mince and rice and veg, and my body just got used to that.
And you shocked your body back into the 50-mile weeks, as you say. For people that don't know, Stevie, you have got two very young children to the point they're still needing to get help, get dressed and things like that. They're that young. How do you get the discipline? It's not even about motivation at that point. How do you get discipline to go and do those runs or fit the time in?
Well, first and foremost, and the one golden rule whenever I sign up to any sort of event, and I speak to my wife Debbie about it, the one golden rule we've got is it's family first and training second, and it's got to be that. Occasionally there's a bigger run, so occasionally there's a in your peak weeks, there's maybe like a 35 mile or a 40 mile run that, you know, like the one you look down the training plan and you're like, that one's going to suck when I get to that one. But occasionally those ones, like I've got to do them on a Saturday during the day. It's just not practical to fit it in. But aside from that, it's just a case of getting up early in the morning and getting out and doing it. Now, I was really fortunate with this training block for the West Highland Way. Debbie had to have some pretty major surgery back in January, which we knew about, and it was elective, and we knew it was happening. So I kind of fitted my training in round about that for the first month or so until she was fully mobile again. But then she was off pretty much for the rest of my training block to recover, which for me it meant I could always guarantee time in the morning. It was just a case of how early did I want to get up. You know, my base runs were about 8 miles, so I needed just over an hour to do that. So it's not actually that bad. And then my longer runs, I would just get up early in the morning. And if that meant getting up at, you know, 5 o'clock to be, or 3:30 to be out the door at 5 to give me 3 hours to go for a run, and then be back, get showered, get the dog, or get the dog out, get showered, and then sit down at my desk for work, then it's just what you had to do.
And mindset wise, what got you out of bed? There must have been mornings that, as you say, it sucks. The training's it is not easy. That's what people would be wondering. It's something I wonder.
Partly just the accountability side of it. You know, every day I was posting up, so all the way through the block, I was doing 6 days a week for my runs. So I would start on, you know, let's say week 1, I would put up a post, West Highland Way, week 1, day 1. And then next day, week 1, day 2, and so on and so on. So there was that kind of accountability of, if I don't go up and do this, I'm not, you know, there's going to be nothing there. But then I guess the biggest thing for me was it scared me. Like the West Highland Way genuinely scared me because it was just so far into the unknown that I didn't want to turn up at that start line and get found out. You know, I wanted to get to that start line and know that, yeah, it's 95 miles. It's a long time on your feet. There's stuff out with your control that could happen, but I wanted to get there knowing that I deserved to be there at that start line with everybody else, and I deserved to have a fighting chance at it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people say that social media is bad, doom scrolling and all that. But I think if you use it correctly, and you're an example of that, using it for accountability, making people aware of what you're doing, and then you've got to answer for it. Even nobody probably cares if you failed, but you care that you don't want to show that on your Instagram.
Yeah, and that's what I say to people. If people message me and say, "Oh, I'm thinking about doing it," the one thing I say is, you know, document what you're doing. It doesn't have to be public. It doesn't have to be like I do, where you're posting stuff every day, but document it somewhere so you can look back and you can be like, well, that day was hard. That, you know, that was, the rain was coming sideways, but I still got up and I still got out there and done it. And if you are doing it publicly, then the only people that are going to judge you are the people sitting at home doing way less than what you're doing. Nobody's going to criticize you for getting up and going for a run.
I mean, one of the biggest transformations, I was gobsmacked when I seen you posted a reel days before the West Highland Way race start. Your physical results of that entire training block were absolutely phenomenal, and people come up to me and say how like they recognize you from that reel now of the transformation. What was that like for you, putting that together?
So that and again, that was something that before, so that video was taken just before, it was the end of November, and I was just out for a run one morning, and I think I was recording some footage to do a kind of end of month summary, and I put the drone out beside me and I just started running, and then I seen it afterwards, and that's the point where I was like, I need to do something here, because I was, you know, in the nicest possible terms, I'd turned back into a big unit again, and I was just bouncing along the road. But I had that video, and I would watch that video on a regular basis throughout my training, because I would look at it and I was like, I don't want to be like that anymore. And then as I got towards the end of my training, I thought, I've still got those shoes. I've still got that t-shirt. I'd thrown out a lot of t-shirts, but I was like, I've still got that one. I was like, I'm going to go back and just put the drone in the exact same position and run down the exact same bit of road and then just flick between it. Because, yeah, I mean, for me, like I would notice all the differences. Like I say, I was getting faster, I was getting lighter on the scales. But I think for me, when I seen that transition between the two of them, it was like, you know, you've put the work in here, you deserve to go and have a crack at this now.
And going back to your training, you were obviously restricting calories to lose weight.
Yeah.
But during your training, you have to eat more. So what kind of things were you eating during your training runs, and how did you balance the calories?
Yeah, so like during the training, I always take the approach that when it comes to an actual run, I don't care about, well, I care in terms of making sure I'm getting enough, but I'm not counting that towards what I'm eating that day, if that makes sense. That is fuel for there and then that I'm going to burn through doing that activity. So for me, my go-to is Tailwind. I'll pop that in bottles. I spoke to a friend that was doing an Ironman years ago, and this was before I'd done Glasgow to Edinburgh, and I was like, how do you fuel for an Ironman? Because the thought of having gels for 11, 12 hours, I was like, that's not going to work for me. And they put me on the Tailwind, so I thought, well, I'm drinking fluids, I might as well get some carbs out of that as well. I do still have gels, so if I'm going out on a shorter run, maybe I'll just whack a gel in and take that. And then I've dug these out. I am fully on board with these for fuel loading now, which for anybody not watching is Nerds Gummy Clusters. I am a complete convert to them now. Again, it was another friend who runs marathons. She's done the kind of 6 world majors, and she was talking about them on a training run one day, and she pointed out that a bag that size with a 113 gram bag has got 90 grams of carbs in it. So yeah, you didn't get to my size without having a sweet tooth. So for me, that was perfect. I got to run and I got to eat sweeties as I was running. So tried them on a training run, haven't looked back.
Well, I'm sure the question that everybody's dying to ask is, what's your favourite flavour?
Oh, the berries one, the blue one. Definitely the berries one. And it's the thing is, I won't take them on. I'll only take them on bigger runs. So if I'm going out for a couple of hours, I'll just take a bottle of Tailwind and maybe a gel and some salt tablets with me. But if I'm going out for maybe anything over 3 hours, I'll take some Nerds Gummy Clusters with me. And the only rule is that if I don't finish them, as soon as I walk back into the house, my 2-year-old comes bounding up to me asking for the candies because he loves them. And if he sees me, like I had to go and sneak these out of the cupboard, he doesn't know where I keep all my Tailwind, and he doesn't know that at the back of it there's a whole pile of nerds in there, because if he finds that out, they're gone.
And what the collective noun, a pile of nerds.
Yes, yes.
Sorry, Mike. What gels is it that you take out with you, Stevie?
SIS gels. So SIS beta gels, you get about 40 grams of carbs out of them, and it's palatable. It's not too thick. Yeah, it's quite easy just to stick one of them in your mouth and get on with it.
A lot of people were having them or not having them on the Great Glen when I did it a few weeks ago. So I got to try them for the first time, and yeah, I would
do them. I tried some Voom bars during my training, and I decided I wasn't going to go with them, just because I had Nerds. So I think the good thing about having the Nerds is you can eat that over the space of an hour, so it's just keeping your stomach switched on over that hour. So normally what I would do is I would go, hour 1 would be Tailwind, and then hour 2 would be something that I was eating. Now, whether that's Nerds or whether that's going into a checkpoint and picking up almond fingers or something like that. But I felt that as long as I was alternating, then you're giving your stomach something to do for an hour, then you're giving it a break, then you're giving it something to do for an hour, then you're giving it a break, and it just keeps any GI issues away for me.
So were you quite confident that your stomach was adequately trained by the time you got to the start line?
Yeah. I knew I had a bunch of things I could eat. Like I say, I had almond fingers that I was going to have them at checkpoints. I actually had them on the Devil in one of my drop bags. started running with them, and I thought I'll get to the bottom of the Devil's Staircase and I'll leave my almond fingers going up there as I'm hiking. That all makes sense. But on the day, they were so dry that I thought, I'm actually drinking too much fluid here to swallow these, and that's going to compromise the rest of my run down into Kinloch leaving. So at that point, I decided, no, almond fingers are definitely a checkpoint thing where I don't have to worry about using water that I'm going to take out on the course with me.
Keith Russell, well-respected backyard runner.
Yeah,
that's his secret sauce apparently.
It was Keith that put me onto them. It was Keith that had them at the Wild Heart Runners run in Glencoe.
So you get to the start line of the West Highland Way, the race that you'd planned for such a long time. How did you feel?
Nervous to start off with. Like you would have seen me driving in the car. I was kind of at that point. It was very real. I'd seen all the photos from previous years and the videos from previous years, and I'd been there. I'd actually been to the start a couple of times, just to do like out and backs, or even 2 weeks beforehand. I'd actually went over at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'd ran with a friend from there over to Balmaha just to simulate what that's going to feel like at that time in the morning. But when you get there and everybody else is milling about and the banners are up and the start arch is there, yeah, that was a bit different.
What was it? What you expected?
Yeah, I would say it was, and I think the nice thing was because of the online community, you kind of made friends with people that either people you knew or names you knew. I'd been in touch with them throughout a training block. So when I got there was friendly faces that, we were all in this together, and we'd all been through training together, and we'd all been sending each other messages. So that kind of just settled the nerves a little bit. I went off to the car to try and get some sleep, but it didn't happen. Like, I think in future, if I was to do it, I would definitely take earplugs with me, because everybody's milling about, and it's just that hustle and bustle about the car park.
I think if I was to advise anybody, I would park somewhere else. There's plenty of car parks throughout Mulgai that's only 10 minutes walk away, and getting that peace and quiet is probably worth it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I lay there with my eyes shut, but I didn't get any sleep.
And then we get you to the start line, give you a hug, say good luck, Stevie. Away we go and watch you all run off. What was that moment like when you're in the pen, so to speak, just as you're about to go?
Again, it was good because I was there with my mate Kevin Craig, who again we'd shared a lot of training miles, and Kevin had done it last year, and Kevin was one of those people that had inspired me to go and do it this year. So it was nice just having Kev there, and that just kind of calmed things down. And then before you know it, it was just like, it's 1 o'clock, let's go. And then running up through the main street in Mulgai, that was unbelievable. Just the amount of people there, and the clapping and the cheering, and yeah, like I said, I'd done training runs in the dark on that section, and I'd ran it in the day, but suddenly you're there with 250 other torches all over the place. It's just it's hard to explain what that feels like.
And when I was there, it's probably first time in about maybe 6 years, and there seem to be a lot more people now or this year than back then. Especially compared to like the first time that I did the West Highland Way. It's just, I guess, like running in general has just exploded. So that's what the atmosphere was like there.
Yeah, I mean, it was easily lined 2 or 3 deep the entire length of the main street until you turned off onto the actual start point of the West Highland Way. And you get the impression it wasn't just support crews that were there. It was people from the town that came down. It was people that came out from the pubs to see, or people that came out and then hung about to see what was happening. It was just a really, really nice atmosphere.
So you get to the start point, the official start, you all turn off, you go down the wee windy bit, and then you're on your way up to Mugdock. Is that when you can all then just kind of sort of settle down? That's the excitement of the start. It's done, and you're just getting into your groove at that point. Is that right?
Yeah, you're just trying to settle into it. I was running with Kev at that point, so we kind of we both had a rough time of when we were going to get to Balmaha, and we were both in kind of rough ballpark each other. So we said, let's just go and run this section. I'd ran that section with Kev back in January. Complete freezing conditions, 7 o'clock in the morning, head torches on, mist and fog everywhere. So to share that again with him when there was head torches everywhere, like it was surreal. Like you were almost having to be super carefully where you were putting your feet, because there was just so many shadows and so many lights all over the place. But yeah, it was just settling into a groove and just trying not to get. I was determined I wasn't going to get sucked along at somebody else's pace, and I'd said that to Kevin as well. I was like, look, if you're going a little bit fast, and I feel this is a little bit fast, I'm just going to let you go, because I'd made that mistake on the Devil this year. Bumped into a friend's between maybe like a mile and a half outside of Tyndrum, and I got sucked along to Bridge of Orchy doing like 8-minute miles, which almost wrecked my race before it had even started. So I was very determined that I was running my own race. But yeah, I think you could just feel the excitement in everybody, even though it was a massive distance still to go. Everybody was, just really excited about it.
So you get to, there's the road section.
Yep.
And then you get to Drimmen. No major events during that.
No, just being sensible. Just taking my time on the hills up through after Gartness, and then through Drimmen fine, and then up into the forest round the back of Drimmen. And I was actually feeling good at that point, and I think myself and Nicky had been there, about a month ago maybe, before the race. And we had hiked a fair bit of those hills, but I was feeling fine. I thought, you know what, I'm just going to crack on here. And it was actually going up through there. I remember it was 3:30 in the morning. It was about 3:30 in the morning. And at one point I turned my head torch off, and I'm like, you don't need your head torch anymore. Like you could comfortably run with it. I put it back on just in case, but you're just running along. It was just one of those mornings where you could see a little bit of mist hanging about, and it felt good.
And did you clock the creepy figure that you and I had seen?
It wasn't there. So on the day that myself and Nicky had ran from Gartness over to Balmaha, one of the baggage companies for the West Highland Way had dragged this baggage cart out into the forest and set it up with a high-vis vest on it and some zombie mask on it. Now, fortunately, when we got there, it was maybe 7:30 in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, so it was light. There was also a group from the West Highland Way Facebook group. There was also a group who had went out at 1 o'clock that morning and had ran from the start over to Balmaha. So they came across that at 3 in the morning when it was pitch black. I think their reaction was a little bit stronger to our reaction to
it. So you're coming up over Connacht. How was the new steps down from Connacht?
It was okay. Like I knew I wasn't going to be running down them. Maybe the top third until you get down to like that wee viewing platform that sits out on the right hand side of the path if you're coming down. I kind of ran to there, but then the bottom 2/3 of it, I just took my time. I wasn't there to compete. I was there to complete it. I wasn't going to win my race by running down there, but I could have ended my race. So I just took my time. And then got off that and got down to the checkpoint.
And was Nikki waiting for you?
She was there, tapped in, and then went down, got covered in midge spray because they were out and biting. But it was a relatively quick checkpoint.
Yeah.
I was just picking up some stuff from there and then heading off. So it's pretty plain sailing.
Up to Rowerdenen, which we've already talked about, because something significant happened there. But as we said, we'll move on. We won't drag it out.
The most significant thing that happened there was my breakfast roll that the girls had brought me. So they got a roll and sausage with potato scone, and it was amazing. It was something I wanted to do, just to try and reset my circadian rhythm and convince myself that it was morning time. So I had that, brushed my teeth afterwards, and I was like, right, okay, now it's time to go out for my morning run. And it was just trying to get that reset and forget that I just ran through the night.
And for us as crew, it was important for us to get you ready because we were well aware that from Riverdale to Octartire, you had a checkpoint in the middle of that at Inversnaid as well, did you not?
Yeah, it was in Inversnaid and Beinglass.
Yeah. That was going to be the longest stretch that you had of the whole race where you weren't going to have a crew with you. So we really wanted to get you set up and off you go. And that would have been your longest section.
Yeah. No, it was definitely, I know it can be a pain for crews to go along that single track road to get there, but it definitely made a difference having somebody there, rather than just picking up a drop bag, because especially at the kind of the middle of the pack where I was running, it didn't really make a difference to me taking some time to sit and have that breakfast roll. But it made a massive difference to me to have that breakfast roll, if you know what I mean. It just reset me and got me going again.
People have asked us as well since, like, if you had like crewing advice. I would actually say to them, if you were really, really bothered, you probably actually don't need crew at Balmaha, but I would say it's probably more important, as you're saying, if you're mid-pack or near the back, I would say it's more mentally important Riverdale to get to there.
I mean, you can come through Balmaha, you've got the water tap just at the bottom of the car park, so if you do need to top up your fluids, it's something you could do yourself. You wouldn't absolutely need somebody there. But then, like you say, it's not so much distance wise that it's a big, it is a big section, but it's time wise because of the terrain that you're then running over once you leave there.
I don't know where the mandatory checkpoints are. It used to be Balmaha was a mandatory checkpoint.
That could actually be a point. That could be a point that you might have to have somebody there.
And I think Riverdale, you've got the option, or used to have the option, of drop bags there.
I think you're right on that one, Mike. I think you're right. So don't listen to Nikki's advice.
Yeah, don't listen to me. Best advice is read your race pack.
Always follow the rules that are written down, not the ones that Nikki are telling you.
Yeah, don't do the ones I make up. So we made sure you were fine at Riverdale, and it said, off you go, Stevie, where you go. What happens then?
Headed off towards the low road, and actually bumped into another runner, Blair, from Edinburgh, and we pretty much buddied up for the next 30 odd miles at that point. So he'd never been through the low road or through Lochside. So as it was, we were just running within each other's vicinity, and then he turned around and he asked if I knew somebody from Edinburgh that was running on the Devil, and I did. So at that point, we realised we had a mutual friend, and we just ran with each other, just chatting away, and we were keeping a good pace. I didn't feel like I was getting dragged along, and I didn't feel like I was losing time. And it was just nice to have somebody else there to get through that section. Just take your mind off what you were running through. Inversnaid was fine. I had a change of socks there. Not that my feet were wet, but they were a bit sweaty, so just changed my socks, and then off we went to Beinglass. And I think Lochside, I had been through it beforehand. I'd been through it before the race, but it was just oppressively warm and muggy. By that point, the sun was up, and I'd been quite fortunate because of Ben Lomond and being on the east bank. The sun had to, if you imagine, the sun had to get right up in the sky before it was actually getting onto us. But by that point, it kind of clouded over a little bit. But then the flip side of that was it was just sealing all the heat in. So, it was muggy as hell going through that section.
And we had the discussion beforehand about Lochside.
Yeah.
How much of it have you been on before, or was it a surprise on race day?
No. So the one thing I've made the mistake, and this is going to sound crazy compared to what we're talking about just now, but I made the mistake on Glasgow Edinburgh of not recceing the whole route. And I know that sounds crazy because it's a canal, it's perfectly flat, but I hadn't recceed the section from Lithgow to the finish. And I hated coming round the corner and not knowing what was next, just not knowing where I was in relation to where the next checkpoint was and things like that. So ever since then, I've always said, if ever I'm doing a race and I can get to the course beforehand, then I'm going to go out and recce it. So I made a point of covering the entire West Highland Way before race day. And for that section of Lochside, what I actually done was I went to Beinglass one morning, ran south to Inversnaid, and then turned around and ran north. So I actually got to see it from both sides, which was beneficial because there's certain sections where when you're going north, the obvious route, you maybe get to a bit where it kind of, the path splits between some rocks, and you'll maybe go north, you'll look at it and think, well, the obvious route here is to take the left-hand side and go round, but then what that would ultimately mean was you're maybe stepping up like half a metre or 75 centimetres at the far ends, and your knees are coming up above your hips to get up and over that. Whereas running south, we could actually see that the obvious path was then to take the other side. So it was just trying to take these notes of, all right, when I get here, I actually want to take this little step up here that doesn't seem like the obvious way to go, but what that's going to do is then save me scrambling up rocks at the far end of this path. So yeah, it was definitely beneficial to go and do that. And then just kind of knowing, like once we got up to Dario's post, knowing what was still to come and where you could run to then get down into Beinglass, that definitely helped.
So Beinglass, probably a midge fest again.
It was, but I tried not to hang about too long there. I did take advantage of the glorious toilets they've got there, and then just grabbed my stuff and got up. I knew that once you get a couple of miles out of Beinglass, you're then kind of out onto open farmlands, and at that point the breeze then kicked in, so the midges weren't really an issue at that point.
Yeah,
and then you didn't have your support crew along that way, but how were the volunteers?
Volunteers were brilliant. Like you walked into any checkpoint and straight away they were getting you to tap in. If you were grabbing a seat, they were straight over asking what they could do in terms of filling things up for you. Yeah, they were brilliant. But again, now having experienced the whole thing, I would expect nothing less, because without even knowing the volunteers, I know in my head that some of them will have done it, or some of them will have queued, or some of them will want to do it next year, and that's what we're doing this year, helping out everybody.
I think most of the volunteers, they've run it before, and they're doing what they want to be done to them if they were running it.
Yeah. No, that definitely shone through. I mean, the likes of those checkpoints where I had drop bags, I would have to get my tailwind out to then fill put my tailwind into my bottles to then get my bottles filled up. And straight away, as soon as people seen that I had a wee funnel to do that, they were like, "Oh, I'll do that for you." And they would just literally take my bottles off and be like, "Right, there you go, that's it." So just not even having to do that made a massive difference.
And then you're up the next midge fest of Ochtertower Farm.
Yes.
And their glorious toilets there.
Unfortunately, I didn't need to go to those toilets at that point. But no, that was nice. Just to get to your queue and know that you've then got, at that point in my head, it then became a series of smaller social runs. I won't try and explain it like Nikki tried to explain it on the previous episode, but we had a plan laid out, and the one thing that I was advised beforehand was take 2 runners with you between each checkpoint, at least 2 runners with you, because then that way, if I get myself into the pain cave or get myself into a dark place, I've not then got a support runner who's talking to me and getting 0 back from me, because I've been there. I've been out with friends that I'm trying to pace to a 10k time or a half marathon time, and they're struggling and I'm talking away, and you just feel like, oh, am I saying too much here? Should I be quiet? Am I going too fast? So the idea was, if we had at least 2 other people with me, then we could all chat away, but if I didn't want to say much, they could just chat and the conversation could go between them, and I could jump in and jump out of it as I pleased. So yeah, that at that point it was just a bunch of small social runs with my mates. And
then there's the crew can park at Tyndrum.
Yes.
But I don't know if it's a checkpoint there. It goes a different way. It used to go past the By the Way campsite, but it goes the other way now. So you're not doing the river crossing. You're actually going through the village past Brody's store, which back in the day you used to always go and get an ice cream from there, or your crew would, and they would have your ice pole or something ready for you. I think it was a day that you needed that. Did Nikki provide one?
Well, there was ice poles. I don't know if it was Nikki that provided them, but there was ice poles when we got to Bridge of Orchy. But what I had said, at that point, obviously the rest of the crew were joining us. So what I said to my mate Stuart was, he was driving up in the afternoon, and I'd said to him on the Friday when we seen the temperatures, I said, look, could you go to the shops and get me 6 bottles of 500ml, just 500ml plastic bottles of water, and freeze them for me overnight? And I said, I don't care. He's got a wee fridge in his car. And I said, I don't care if they melt. My plan is, when I get to your car at Tyndrum, what we'll do is we'll take that bottle, we'll slash it open. Well, we'll pour the water into my hydration pack, and then we'll slash it open. We'll just take that frozen core of ice and we'll pop it into my hydration pack. And I think that was the best call I made all weekend. At that point, every checkpoint I got to, we just went through the same routine, emptied out whatever water had melted, and then popped the frozen core into the back. It served 2 purposes. One, it froze the water, kept the water cool in my back as I was running. So, you would take the first drink of water that would be in the tube that was exposed to the sun. It was a bit warm, but then it was proper ice cold water you were getting. And then the second advantage was it was sitting on my back, so it was cooling my temperature down as I was running. But yeah, that made a massive difference, especially at that point. We're what, 2 in the afternoon, half 2 in the afternoon, so the temperature's really starting to build.
And then through Bridge of Orchy and up to your 100k, your big your Instagram name, and of course the best unofficial checkpoint of the whole race. 100k, what did that mean to you?
It meant everything to me, because regardless of what happened at that point, regardless of how far I got on the rest of the course, I had hit the goal that I had set 18 months ago. It did leave me with a dilemma, and I've still got it, that I'm no longer 100 kilograms and I've ran more than 100 kilometers, so I now need to come up with some sort of new Instagram handle. But yeah, no, just getting to that point. I mean, the Jelly Baby was amazing. It was a purple Vimto Jelly Baby, before you ask, and I've seen the pack since then, and I'm like, no, they're sacred. I'm not buying them. I'm just going to keep the memory of that. But yeah, no, from that point onwards, it was, like I said, in my head, I'm like, I'm getting to the finish line, but if something had happened over the next 60k or 50k or however far it was, then
52. I had
went as far as I'd not wanted to, but I'd hit that goal that I'd set last year. So yeah, it was good.
And at that point, still moving at a really good pace as well, along the Nickmoor.
That's because I hadn't got onto Rannoch Moor yet, and I think it was Rannoch Moor that then destroyed my heels over the next kind of 7-8 miles.
Mm-hmm.
So was that just the terrain, the constant boulder field as you're going?
Yeah, so I think it was just the terrain where I was, just with the boulders, I was maybe putting my foot down, and my heel was just kind of landing at the edge of a boulder and then slipping off as I was then planting it down. And I think it was just that rubbing on the kind of outside of both heels. By the time I got to Glencoe, I had always planned to change my socks there anyway, and my socks came off, and Nikki and Donna both kind of went, oh, and at that point I thought, well, that's not good. So yeah, we had some running repairs at Glencoe to get me patched up and get me back out again.
It was quite good because we fed you at that point as well. At Bridge of Orchy, before you'd got there, we had a mini crew meeting to decide, right, Glencoe, there's a cafe there. I wonder what we can buy you, because at that point it's going to be dinner time. You'd said about your circadian rhythm. We thought, right, we'll try and get you something to eat. At which point I then phoned Stevie's wife to say, right, we are going to deviate slightly here. What would he eat? Would he like soup? Burger's going to be too heavy. And Debbie had said, absolutely not. We're not, he won't go off the plan. And we ended up giving you soba noodles.
Noodles, yeah. And I'm glad you did, because the combination of just having some hot foods and just getting the salt from the noodles into my system, that really helped. And again, as crazy as it may sound, I knew that when I stopped at Glencoe, my temperature was just going to plummet. The sun was still there, but there was quite a breeze at Glencoe. So yeah, I'd already thought about that. I had a wee puffer jacket for me, but one of the things I'd said to all the crew beforehand was, nothing's out of bounds here when it comes to checkpoints or whatever. I want, take the photos. If I look in a bad way, still take the photos, take the videos. And I look at the photo of me at Glencoe and I look like I'm broken at that point. I'm just sitting there with my hood up, my jacket on, just trying to get these noodles into me. But it was exactly what I needed. And I'm glad you all bullied me into eating food from that point onwards.
What's fabulous about that photo is, depending on who you show within the running community, one person says, "Oh wow, that looks very Barclay Marathons," and another person says, "My God, he looks homeless."
A little bit of A, a little bit of B.
Going back to, well, I guess it's Glencoe, but Rannoch. You said that you had heel troubles. Was it blisters, or do you think it was to do with your plantar fasciitis?
No, it was definitely blisters. It was definitely blisters, because when I had plantar, it was on the inside of my arch, whereas this was on the outside of my heels. And yeah, I mean, it was just from that movement. Every time I was putting my foot down, and then we put some Compeed and some bandages on it, and I think from that point onwards, I was just very careful about where I was planting my feet, which meant that some sections were slower than I would have liked them to be, especially in the latter stages going up over Glanigmore. It was just a boulder field going through some of those bits, and I was just trying to pick my way slowly through it. But yeah, it was definitely terrain that caused the issue rather than any existing issues.
And then we got you all patched up, good to go, got you back on your feet, and you had 3 support runners. I think we gave you a bonus runner in Gemma.
Yeah. So at that point, Sketch was all in. He was in from Octatire to the end. He wanted to do that, and he's the sort of mate that in previous events when I've been going on recce runs, he's the sort of guy that I can send a WhatsApp message to say, I'm thinking about going for a long training run, and he's in before he even knows where it is or how far it is or how long it's going to take. So when he said he was doing the full thing, I was like, brilliant, that's fine. And then we had Donna Duncan came and joined me at that point, which is amazing because she's completed it twice. She's got that experience. She knows what I was going to feel like at that point. And then the bonus was Gemma Holloway, who had already ran with me from Bridge of Orchy over to Glencoe, but then on the way over she was asking, is it okay if I join you on this next bit? And the whole point for me of getting everybody involved was these are all friends who have, well, apart from Sketch, these are all friends who have ran ultras in one shape or another, one distance or another. And at some point, whether they all want to admit it or not, they're going to think about doing the West Highland Way. They're going to think about stepping up to that distance. So I wanted them to experience it. I wanted them to be part of it. And for Gemma, we the last time we'd been running together was at the Wild Heart Runners run in Glencoe back in March, and the weather was atrocious. I think it rained for 5 out of the 6 hours we were out there. And we'd actually ran over to Kinlochleven, turned around, came back up the hill from Kinlochleven, and it was getting to the point where I was thinking, depending how high we go back up here, we might end up in the snow line because the weather had really set in. Gemma was freezing, I was freezing. It wasn't nice. Had there been a car at the bottom of the Devil's Staircase that day, we would have jumped in it and drove back up to Glencoe Ski Centre. So when Gemma suggested that she might want to run that next bit, I was like, absolutely, because I want you to have a positive experience of going over that section again, rather than her lasting memory being, it's cold, it's rubbish, why would I want to do that? So yeah, so Gemma joined us going up and over the staircase, and at that point it was like 11 o'clock at night, so it was starting to get dark and the head torches were on. It was just, we just got round. It's one of my favourite views on the West Highland Way. As you're dropping down the other side of the staircase towards Kinlochleven, you come round. I don't know what the lock's called, but there's a lock off to your
it's a reservoir.
Reservoir. Well, it's off to your right hand side, and then you've got the I'm guessing what must be part of the mountains that make up the Ring of Steel in front of us. And at that time of night, it was just all these layers of mountains appearing in front of us because the light was just starting to go. I love that section. Absolutely love it.
I think it's Blackwater Reservoir and the pipes that you see going down to Kinloch.
Right, so that's where that feeds in from. Okay.
So.
Okay.
So did you get the chip shop in Kinloch leaving?
No, we were too late for that. But that was never on the plan. But I think we got into Kinloch leaving. Must have been close to midnight because I remember my brother sending me a text message saying, if you hurry up, you'll get last orders at the pub. So it must have been coming up on midnight by the time we were getting down there. And yeah, got in there, got myself sorted. And yeah, it was just a case of getting back out and trying to get up onto Lavigmore.
And how does Larrig compare to Rannoch?
It was different in the dark. So I've been through it a couple of times in daylight on recce runs or on the Devil. I knew that I just had to get up the zigzags, and then I also knew there was another couple of kilometres to get up and get over the kind of the top of that climb. But yeah, the hard thing there was just the underfoot conditions, just the rocks. And obviously it's always wet up there. It doesn't seem to be matter how many weeks ago it was it last rained. There's always water flowing through there. So yeah, that was good. We got through there, got to the final checkpoint at Lindavra, and I'd already said, look, we're just going to keep on going, just tap in, tap out, push through this, and let's just try and get this done.
And for most of the race so far, it had been what, 20-something degrees sunshine.
Yeah, well, it was what, 19 degrees at the start, and I don't think it dropped below that after that.
And how was it for your last section?
So when we were in the checkpoint at Kinloch leaving, the staff had come over to us, the volunteers had come over and said, look, have you got wet weather kit with you? We're like, yeah, got a jacket. And they're like, have you got full wet weather kit with you? And I remember saying that I've got it in the car, but I'm not taking trousers with me. Like, I'm not going to run in trousers. And they're like, you might need them because at 4 o'clock, you're going to get torrential rain. And I'd kind of in my head, I'd made the decision that had they been telling us that at Balmaha, it would have been completely different. Of course, I would have taken it, but I thought we're so close to the finish, we'll just crack on. So we got up through Lavigmore, and we're just coming to Lindavra, and it's starting to get light at like 3:30 in the morning, and we're like, I remember actually Donna saying, "Well, that's it. We've broken the back of the second night. That's us through it. We're going to this will be good going forward." So we get through Lindavra, get up towards the Nevis Forest, so kind of up about, about 1,000 foot or something like that, 1,100 foot. So you're fairly high up, and then it starts getting dark again, and we're looking about, and we're like, okay, but we keep on running. And then I caught something out the corner of my eye, and I thought, I'd already had hallucinations by that point, so I didn't really think much about it. I was just like, nah, just keep running. And then about 15, 20 seconds later, there was just this rumble that filled the glen. And I just had that moment in my heart sinking, thinking, oh no, here we go. But we just kept going. And then a couple of minutes later, there's another flash, and we all stopped and looked at each other. And instantly I started going 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm counting to see how far away this was. And it was 15 seconds away. It's like, right, let's just keep going. And within the space of 5 minutes, it went from being like 15 seconds away to being like 6 seconds away. And at that point, we decided, no, let's stop. Let's get our wet weather kit on. Let's get our jackets on because this is coming. And we had what, 9 or 10K to go. And again, within the space of a couple of minutes, the rain started, and I have never seen rain like it. We went from having a bone dry trail in front of us to not having a trail, just having a river that we could run through. On the plus side, it meant I picked up the pace like nothing at all because I did not want to be there. I'm perfectly fine with thunder and lightning in a safe environment, but I don't like it when there's exposure. And for all that Ben Nevis was nearby and the hills round about us were higher, all I'm thinking is I'm running along with a stupid selfie stick stuck onto my pack here. And yeah, just wanted to get. I knew I had to get through the forest, drop down, come up Watermelon Hill onto the fire road, and then at that point we would start losing height significantly as we got down it, and it was just a case of get to the fire road, get over the crest of that, and then I'll feel a lot safer once we're starting to go down. But yeah, at one point you're running along, and you can actually see the lightning striking the hill that we've got to run up onto the fire road on. There was several words screamed that I won't repeat on a family-friendly podcast, but yeah, it wasn't the most enjoyable section of the course. But on the plus side, I think with the water, running through all the puddles, at that point I didn't care about my blisters. I just wanted to get down off that hill.
And you just brushed over that you had hallucinations.
Yes.
Go back. What were they?
So coming out of the Lindavra checkpoint, you kind of come up, there's a wee hill that goes up, you go through a couple of gates. Now again, I know this, I've ran it 3 times this year. So through one gate, through the next gate, and then you go up on one side of the hill. And I looked over to the other side of the hill that's only like 100 foot away. And I said to Sketch and Donna, I was like, look at all those sheep. And they were like, what do you mean, Stevie? And I said, look at that line of sheep. That's amazing. How are they doing that? And in my head, I could see 300 or 400 sheep that were moving down the side of the hill in the opposite direction to where we were going. So I'm moving one way, they're moving the other way. I can hear them. They're all bleating away. And Sketch and Donna say, where have you seen these sheep? And I'm like, there. And they were like, Stephen, that's a stone dyke wall. And I'm like, no, but I can hear them. And they said, look 50 yards in front of us, there's 6 sheep by the side of the trail. But in my head, this was 300 or 400 sheep all perfectly in a line moving down the hill towards the checkpoint. So yeah, at that point I then didn't start to trust things. So when that first flash of lightning went off, I was like, I'm just imagining that. That's fine, just keep going.
I think Sketch recording a video and sending it to the crew chat screaming, we're all going to die, didn't help either.
Yeah. I actually tried to get my phone out. I wasn't keen to get my selfie camera out. I didn't really fancy running along holding something in front of me. That was definitely not going to happen. But I tried to get my phone out just to record how wild it was. Because at one point, even with my head torch on, I couldn't see more than 10 foot in front of me. The rain was coming down that hard, and the phone wouldn't unlock in those conditions, but it was wild. Absolutely wild.
And you must have felt safe for having Donna and Sketch there, because that would have been scary.
Yeah. So we actually overtook a runner who was on her own, just going up through Lavigmore. And we said to her, we're like, are you okay? Like, have you got a queue? And she's like, oh, no, I want to do this myself. And, I've got the absolute respect for her for doing that, but I would not have wanted to be in those conditions when that storm rolled in if I was on my own.
And you down Glen Nevis, along the road.
Yep.
To the Nevis Centre.
Yes.
Back in the olden days when I did it, you stopped at the leisure centre. Do you even know about that? Do you give it a passing glance? Do you even care?
I knew about it. I knew about it, and obviously it's now the finish. It's the finish for the Devil in the Highlands. So I must say I was glad when I got to the bottom of the Braveheart car park and I didn't have to go up Cow Hill at the end of it. But yeah, no, we'd said to everybody on the crew, we were like, if you want to, come and meet me at Braveheart car park. And then as a crew, we'll run that last mile and a half together. And again, that was me wanting to, these guys had gave up their entire weekend for me. I wanted them to feel part of that final mile and a half. For the likes of Nikki and Donna, not Nikki and Gemma and Sketch. I wanted them to experience that and plant that seed of them being the runners when they get to that point and how that's going to feel. But ran by the leisure centre, and at that point, I'm not going to lie, I was more interested in how we were going to get across the road, because I had looked at the traffic lights and I swear to God there was a swimming pool of water either side of those traffic lights. So we ended up jumping over the road just a little bit further up from there, and then round towards the finish line.
Well, I can tell you that wasn't a hallucination. There was actually a swimming pool of water.
No, there was, because as we were running along, there was a car. We got, God, maybe just about a couple of 100 yards shy of the hospital, and there was a car coming the other way, and I was like, oh no, they're going to completely soak us here. Turns out it was my friend Kev that was in that car, so they gave us a wide berth and tooted the horn. But yeah, it was just nuts, the amount of water that had come down onto the roads and onto the hills in that short space of time.
So next step is you are in the Nevis Centre through that archway. How's that feel? Job done.
Yeah, job done, but also just trying to keep my emotions in check. So on one of my recce runs, I had deliberately, I ran over from Glencoe, and I had Nicky and Kev saying, oh, go up Cow Hill, go and do that. And I was like, no, I want to experience, I want to run this whole thing right up to the back door of the Nevis Centre, because then for the rest of my training block, I'm going to have that memory, and I'm going to visualise what's it going to feel like when I get to do this on race day. So to come round and see those doors open, and then suddenly go through those doors, and that's it, it's over. I'm there, I've done it. All the what ifs and the buts and the maybes that could have happened over the last 95 miles, they've gone. I've got there and I've done it. And I went up to the finisher board to get my photo taken, and Sketch whips out his camera and starts taking a video. And I look back at it now, I can see the moment where it could have went either way for me. There was one moment where it could have all came pouring out, and I could have broke down just in sheer happiness of it. But yeah, I managed just to suck that back down and just kind of take it all in and realise I'd got there.
And then next day is another get the crew involved. Everybody's there when you go up and get your little crystal goblet.
Yeah.
Have you used it yet?
No, it's still sitting right here in my office, well out of reach of the kids, may I add. But I've not used it yet, and I think it's going to be, I don't know, it's going to be a special occasion that I get it out and use it. But yeah, just I think for for me, it was the last 28 hours. All anybody had talked about on that course was getting your goblet, get to the end and get the goblet. So yeah, to get called up in front of everybody again, that was just kind of the icing on the cake. And it comes back to what I was saying about I didn't get the whole concept of the West Highland Way family, but going up and doing that and having the entire hall going mental for you and everybody cheering and clapping, it's just, yeah, it makes you feel so special. And I love the fact that the way they do it, where it doesn't matter if you're the first person to get your goblet or the last person to get your goblet, everybody gives as much enthusiasm for every single person that goes up there.
So same again next year?
I haven't decided what I'm doing next year. I'm going to get I've still got the flying to do. So ultimately, the goal for me this year, once I get into all three, the goal was the Triple Crown. So I'll get that out of the way. I have gone back and looked through my Strava activity, and I've looked at bits where I'm like, I wasted too much time in that checkpoint, I wasted too much time here. So that tells me all I need to know. I will be involved somehow next year. And if it's not running it, if it's not crewing it for a friend, then it'll be volunteering, because I owe that to everybody that helped me out this year. So yeah, I'll definitely be involved one way or another next year.
I think that the next question that Nicky's got down, now that we're back on the question set, is what is your biggest running achievement? But I think I don't even think we need to ask that.
No. Same as my favourite race. It's the West Highland Way. In terms of, if you want to take it back to basics, it's the furthest I've ever run. It's the longest I've ever been on my feet. It's the longest training block I've ever done. It is the hardest thing I've ever done. So yeah, 100% the West Highland Way.
And post-event, just going slightly off the question set, sorry, Mike, have you had any post-race blues from this?
I've not, and I think I've been quite fortunate about that. I see a bunch of folk online and in the West Highland Way group saying it's hitting them hard. But again, for me, because I'm doing the Triple Crown, then I gave myself like probably a week of just not doing anything. Just I maybe went to the gym, jumped on a bike and spun my legs once. And then slowly kind of eased, once my heels had recovered and the blisters had recovered, I slowly started easing back into things the week after that, just getting some miles in my legs again. And then last week I started my training plan for the fling. So I've just kind of shifted to that, which has been good. God knows what's going to happen come the end of September once the fling's out of the way. I think at that point it'll just be, there will be a massive hole there. But yeah, it's been nice not to have those blues, because I could totally understand how that would feel if, you build to that big thing and then it's done and it's like, what do I do now?
Mm-hmm.
And you had your week off.
Yep.
Did the weight go up?
No. My weight's continued to go down, which has been good, and I think that's just the habits that I've formed over the last 6 months. But yeah, I'm back into it now, and just back into that kind of mindset of you're getting up to do the miles in the morning, so don't be wasting it throughout the day.
And the next question that we have on the formal set is, why do you run?
Why do I run? I run because of my daughter. So my daughter was this is I say I don't run because of COVID, like a lot of people started running, but I actually got back into running properly because of something that happened during COVID. My daughter turned up 12 and a bit weeks early, right at the start of COVID. So she was born at 27 weeks and 6 days. She was a wee tiny bundle of skin and bones. She was 2 pounds 6 ounces. She spent the best part of 3 months in the local neonatal unit, and without even knowing it, she smashed every single challenge that was put in front of her. Everything that she had to overcome, she's overcame. If she came busting in this door behind me just now, she's just a normal wee 5-year-old. But at the time, it made me think, well, if she can do that without even trying, what can I do if I start trying? And again, I was well overweight, I was out of shape, and I thought, let's do something here. First and foremost, it was to raise money for the neonatal unit. It was to raise funds for them because they got us through what could have been a traumatic time in our lives. And it wasn't just us, it wasn't just Nova they were looking after, it was us as well. We would go up to visit them, and the staff would pick up on how we were feeling. And before you know it, they'd be like, I think you should go and have a word with Jess, who was the unit psychologist. And you'd be in speaking to the psychologist, who would be saying, okay, staff have noticed that you're doing X, Y, and Z, or you're saying this and that, are you feeling this, are you feeling that? So they were looking after us as well as looking after our daughter. So yeah, I raised money for the unit. In fact, it was Run the Blades I went back to do. At the time, I laughed and joked it was going to cost me 26 miles, but I ended up going back and doing Run the Blades and raised £1,600 for the unit. And at that point, I'd got myself back into some sort of reasonable shape. So I was like, well, do you know what? I was an older dad. When Nova was born, I was 40. So I wanted to think, well, what happens when she's 10 or when she's 15? When she's wanting to, when she's 10 and I'm 50 and she's saying, right, come on, Dad, all my friends are going to Go Ape. Can I go to Go Ape with her? Well, in the shape I was in, I probably couldn't do that. Whereas now it's like, well, I want to be in that condition that no matter what she wants to do or our younger brother wants to do, I can go and do these things with her. So yeah, that's my why for reason, my why for running.
And the next question's probably related, and I think between your 100 kgs and your daughter, it might answer the question, what do you think about when you're running?
It's a mix of things. Sometimes I go out and I just don't think. Sometimes I go out and I just run to get away from, let's say, get away from daily life, but just to switch off. Like, running is my time that nobody can interrupt. If I want to go out and switch my phone on to silent and I can just run for 2 or 3 hours, then it's my time to do that. It can be the exact opposite. Sometimes I can be, dealing with an issue at work, dealing with a problem with an algorithm at work, and I can't figure it out, and I'll finish at 5 o'clock, go off, not really think about it, and then the following morning I'm out running, and suddenly it just comes to me. It's like, why have I not tried this, or why have I not tried that? So it can be a mix of things, but it's not so much what I think about. It's more just it's my time to process whatever I need to process at that moment in time.
And you mentioned that you have got Fling coming up to complete your Triple Crown.
Yep.
Have you got any other events that you are either running or volunteering at that we're going to see that?
Well, I've got Run the Blades this weekend. So Friday night I'll be over at Whiteley marshalling at the 10K. And then I'm back over. It's their 10th anniversary. So I'm back over on Saturday to do the 50K. And I'd put my name in for that on the basis of I'll see how I was doing after the West Highland Way. And if I wasn't doing great, I would drop out and let somebody else come in from the waiting list, and I would just volunteer all weekend. So yeah, I'm going to be doing the 50K there, and then popping back over on the Sunday with the kids to see some of my crew who are doing the half marathon, namely Nikki and Stu.
It'll be good to see you, and definitely, yeah. And following on from that, have you got a dream race or a race on the bucket list?
For all that I have talked about trail running and ultra running for the last hour and a bit, I would love to tick off one of the world majors marathons just for the experience of doing it. I don't know. I mean, people say it's too busy and all the rest of it. Like I said, I put my name in for London 10 years in a row and never get in. I'd like to do one of them. In terms of ultras, something like the Marathon des Sables or something like that, like a multi-day event. And again, it's just that next thing of, I know I can go and run for 28 hours. I've proved that to myself. But how could I cope with running for 5 or 6 hours day after day after day with that built-up fatigue? Like I'd like to experience something like that, but with the cost involved in some of these events, it would be bucket list stuff. It's hard to go and justify that when I've got a young family and that money can be spent on memories for them instead.
Well, you did joke about Cape Wrath the other day.
I know. But I think Gary Dempsey hit the nail on the head with that one. Go and volunteer at it for a year and basically earn your credits to then go and run it the following year. But the kids are way too young to do something like that. It's, you're away for an 8-day event plus a day either side of it. It's too long to be away from them.
And the next question, it can be a hard one to ask depending on the answer. Who would you like to run with? Alive, not, fictional, not?
This one's easy. There's nothing hard about it. I want Nova to get to her 18th birthday and go and do a marathon with her. So what we do just now is it's completely her choice, but what we normally do, Fridays are the day that I always get to do my long run. And whenever I get back from that, I always make sure I've got time for her to pull on her wee running shoes and her wee running top, and we just go. Just now, we're just going for a wee lap around the street, and we just go out and we do that. Hopefully, that's a bug that bites with her, and I think the next stage is to get her along to one of the junior park runs and see how she gets on there, and hopefully that's something that she'll get involved with, and her brother as well. Her brother's 3 years behind her, but it would be my dream to go out and me be fit enough to go and do a marathon when I'll be 58 at that point when she's 18, and hopefully she gets the bug that she wants to go and do it. I mean, she's just so supportive of everything I do just now. She's always asking questions about it. She knew I was running the West Highland Way. She was telling all our nursery teachers that her daddy was off to run the West Highland Way, and I actually had to clarify with them that I was running it. I wasn't just walking it over the space of 5 days. She had no concept how far it is, but she knew all the points on it. So I'm hoping that, by the time she's 18, we can go and share 26 miles somewhere.
Well, I think by the time it gets to her 18th birthday, Stevie, and the way your training's going, you'll probably still be PBing by that point.
I'm like, if both of them get involved in running, I'm going to physically dominate them for as long as I can. That's the ultimate goal with my training. Let's not lie about it. But yeah, no, if I can pass this on to them and get them involved in it, that would be my dream.
And I think your daughter's obviously inspired by what you're doing at the moment. So hopefully she'll keep a hold of that until she's old enough to appreciate it. But the trick that I find with my daughter is make them think that it is their idea that they want to run, even though you know fine that you're wanting them to do it.
Yeah, no, that's that. I mean, that's what I do just now with the Friday morning run. You know, I come back from, you know, Friday morning there, it was 20 miles, and she's ready to come out, and you just plant that seed of, right, we're not racing here, we're just going for a wee run. And then we go off, and off she goes flying away. And then we've got some trees, just a wee trees and a wee play park in front of us. And we came round on Friday morning, we finished the road run, and I was like, well, you know what, Nova, Daddy normally runs on trails. And straight away she was like, I know some trails, and she took me into the woods round it. So yeah, it's just planting that seed and letting her lead the way. That's definitely the way to do it.
And I think that by the time Nova's 18 and the way your training's going, you will still probably be PBing by that point, because you're absolutely smashing the training, the fitness, the races. So you're doing amazing.
Yeah, well, let's not lie. The only reason I'm doing this is so I can physically dominate them at running for as long as possible, because there will come a day where they're going to start beating me, and I will happily pass that torch over to them.
So unless
on you go, Nikki.
I was going to say, unless Mike has any more questions, I think that wraps up our question set.
Brilliant.
I think it is, and it just says thank you, Stevie, for joining us. Thank you, Nikki, for being Nikki, and it's goodbye from me.
Thanks, Stevie, for coming on.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I love that.